Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Gary, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Dalton with Gettysburg History. I'm here with my good friend, Garry Adelman, and we're about to show you a really incredible interview that we just recorded here with a very famous historian. So I'm sure people might have an idea of where we are in the Gettysburg Battlefield, but this is a very special place to you.
It is. This is the Rose Farm, and the guy we're about to meet, I mean, I will never be able to repay, what he has done for this field and for me personally.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We hope you enjoy the interview.
Hello, I'm Tim Smith with Gettysburg History, and here we are today on the Rose Farm at Gettysburg, and I'm with William A. Frassanito, and you say it's been more than a decade since you've been out to the Rose Farm to visit the site of probably one of the more famous rocks on the battlefield associated with Gettysburg photographic history.
To me, it's the most famous rock on the battlefield.
And tell us just a little bit about, what you think when you see this rock and when you first realized that this rock was the key to discovering that the photographs were taken at the Rose Farm.
Well, I had connected a whole group of photographs that had never been connected before of dead soldiers. Individual views have been placed at 4 different locations on the battlefield. And by the time I was in high school, I realized it was one group of photos and that there were boulders at the site. And traditional captions, I knew by the time I was 15 years old, placed individual photos at 4 different places on the first day, second day, third day, and I decided to visit all 4 sites over and over and over again to find which site had the boulders, and I was so puzzled I couldn't find the boulders anywhere. So finally, after 5 years, I decided to search the whole battlefield. Now, when I was a battlefield guide, we used to tell the tourists that the park keeps the battlefield just the way it was at the time, including the wood lines. And the thought never occurred to me that this open field in 1863 was completely overgrown. But I had made other discoveries that showed that the battlefield parts were overgrown, especially in the slaughter pen area. So I decided to search the whole battlefield, and this was the key rock. I was looking for a boulder in an open field next to a dense woods. And on March 10th, 1967, using the backgrounds, I went to Warfield Ridge, did a 180 with a hypothetical angle, and then just started walking into woods, and then I eventually came to this rock, and I said, oh my God, that's the rock. So I went back to my house in town, and I got the books, because I didn't actually have a photograph of the split rock. It had never appeared clearly in any books. But I brought the books out that had the other rocks, and I said, oh my God, this is it. And this area was overgrown at the time, so I said, my God, I have a book here. And those photographs have been used as illustrations for almost a century, and I turned them into valuable documents that the park was able to use to restore the battlefield to the way it was in 1863.
And your book affected other people who read your book, like myself and historian Garry Adelman, who is one of the well-known photographic historians in the field at the moment. And Garry, why don't you talk about your first visit to this rock and what do you think about standing here next to the famous split rock?
Well, thanks, Tim. First of all, Bill, great to be out here with you again. It's been a while, as you said. The first time I came, I was, of course, armed with Bill's book, but like with Bill, it was still wooded. Not entirely wooded, but there were scattered trees all around here. And it was sort of an adventure, much like people pilgrimage to this place now. And they have Bill's book. I have Journey in Time with me here. And they're opening up their book and they're trying to make sense of it. It was even harder back then in the woods, but this place has always been somewhat special. I'm going to segue into 2 other things, though, if I may. 1, 2 of the things you do in your book, and I will have a question coming up, is 1, of course, you try to take people back to the moment of exposure. The journey in time is so that they can understand what was happening at the time. But another thing you do that by no means did you have to is try to learn about and understand who was in the photos and what it was like. My question for you is, what does finding a place like this, if I'm correct off the top of my head, 12 negatives, 44 corpses photographed here, what does finding the location do for them?
Well, I have a personal attachment to these soldiers because even though we'll probably never know the names, and this was one of the most obscure parts of the battle, I feel an attachment with them because I have told what units they probably were with, and that this was the result of the sacrifices that they made, and that now people know what action took place to produce these bodies.
Good. And I think that you're having located this, by the way, when my mom was 8 months pregnant with me. It was I was just about born when you discovered this location. People now know more about this fight with Semmes's brigade in Kershaw, South Carolina, and of course Brooks' brigade coming up. Tim, do you agree?
Absolutely. And I think about this rock in the same sense that you do. When I first came out here with my next door neighbor in the 1970s, this was wooded. It was very difficult to find. And we were actually using the modern views in Bill's book to line up the shots and not the rocks in the back of the photograph because it was so overgrown.
And those views are more than a half a century old now.
Yes. Now, if you bring Bill's Journey in Time out, it's like then and now and now.
Totally. It absolutely is.
Well, I was fascinated by the fact that my modern photographs for the Journey in Time were taken in 1971. And if you were born in 2005, 1971 doesn't seem very modern. But I have a fascination for the photos I took in 1971, particularly a photograph that was taken on Little Round Top. There was a tree there during the battle, and in 1971 this tree was huge, it was enormous. And 9 years after I took the photo, the tree was destroyed by lightning. And I have documented what the battlefield was like in 1971, what these Civil War trees look like in 71, and again, the Journey in Time, then, later, and then you go up there using my maps and see what it's like today, and you experience the Journey in Time.
I'm curious what it feels like for you. I mean, A, did you have any idea? And B, how does it feel that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people roam battlefields looking for modern locations of photos, either ones that you have found or ones that you haven't found? It's a whole new field of study, without which certainly I would have never been here filming this video. I would have never met my wife on the town square. My kids would not have been born were it not for this field of study that you practically invented. Did you have any idea when you were publishing this book, Journey in Time, that it would become such a hit?
I didn't realize that it was going to be that much of a hit. But what I realize now is that the book laid a foundation for endless new discoveries as new information comes to light, and people can go to my book and know how to figure out what the significance of the new information is. So this is an ongoing story that my books laid the foundation for. And of course, my early photography at Gettysburg came out 75, 80, 20 years after Journey in Time, and it includes new information that surfaced as a result of my Journey in Time, especially the posed bodies in Devil's Den, in the slaughter pen area. Yeah. We won't get into that detail unless you want to.
No, well, I mean, I'm kind of curious. Let me ask Tim a question. Tim, why? Have you ever been able to explain why you're so interested in this aspect of studying history?
No, I have a hard time with that when some people say, why are you interested in history, or when did you get started being interested in the battle and history? And I don't know if I have a really good answer for that, but upon reading Bill's book for the first time, and I don't even remember when it was that I first looked at his Journey in Time, it just resonated with me. And the detailed and clinical study of the photographs as historical artifacts, as Bill mentions over and over again, that other books had just treated these Civil War photographs as images and not as historical documents. And something about that really struck me, that there was so much more that could be learned by taking photographs out to the site and lining them up. And I became obsessed with lining photographs up, and not just the ones that you had done in your book, but postcards I had of the battlefield and other people's snapshots of the battlefield over time too, over the years, some more modern stuff also, and not just this. And getting back to something you said, we have the names of soldiers that were killed in the battle as part of Semmes and Kershaw's brigades. And to look at these soldiers and put a name to a soldier, or look at these names on a list and know that these guys in this photograph are one of those people, is really meaningful to me also.
One thing I will mention here, that if there's any place on the battlefield that I would love to see the park do an archaeological dig, and to my knowledge, they've never done anything like that here, have they?
I'm not aware of it.
Because we know exactly where these bodies were buried, and the presumption is they're all gone, but we don't know for certain, and I'd love to see a professional archaeological study of this site to see what's left, and there might even be artifacts that these soldiers had on them when they were killed.
It's an interesting thought, Bill. First of all, let me remind anybody watching that this is a national park. You cannot come out and do that archaeological work yourself.
No, it has to be professional.
Bill said professional. Even if you consider yourself a professional, it doesn't count. But, one thing that we know from Antietam is that in some cases, the reburial crews did not, bother with metatarsals and metacarpals. They didn't necessarily get all the bones. They sometimes just took the long bones and the skulls. There could still be remains out here, and there could be very helpful information to maybe help identify these soldiers, at some point. That would be unbelievable. The park has done a little bit of this work increasingly at Culp's Hill and Little Round Top when they've done work. It would be a great dream.
Yes, and if you want to know more about the subject we've been talking about, you can visit the Adams County Historical Society's Gettysburg Beyond the Battle Museum, and there's a special gallery open to the end of the year with Bill Frassanito's work that we highlight the Rose Farm and some of his other discoveries around the battlefield.
I want to just add, too, that I think Bill has a lot of students, but I think Tim and I are your only official pupils. It's an honor to be here with our mentor.
You're an important part of my legacy. Very important. Right. You'll be here after I'm gone. I hope.
I hope too, sir, to be sure. Now, Bill, even if we spent a full hour with you here, I don't think that's enough time to fully describe this discovery, your other discoveries, and the significance thereof. So is there a place people can learn more?
Yes. In 2010, I gave a talk for the Center for Civil War Photography to describe my entire story of how I got interested in military history, how I got interested in the Civil War, how I got interested in the photos, and it turned into this massive detective story. And the talk that I gave is 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and there's over 100 slides. The first slide is me wearing a sailor suit on my fourth birthday. And it's all online in 6 parts. And if you just Google Frassanito Image of War Seminar Part 1, that'll lead you to the first part. And then in 2023, I gave a talk with Sue Boardman for the Adams County Historical Society. And that's an hour and 38 minutes, and that also goes into great detail with the slides and everything. So this is a very, very long story to tell how I made these discoveries.
I would suggest that you could go to the Library of Congress and download the high-resolution images that Bill used to have to go to the Library of Congress and use a high magnification to see. You can download them yourself and blow them up on your computer and engage with these photos. You can go to the to Gettysburg History's channels and to the American Battlefield Trust channels, where there are a number of videos by us and other people covering this subject, because it's a whole subject now, Gettysburg photography and Civil War photography in general. I think you can keep yourself busy for days, if not weeks, just looking at this content. Tim, take us out.
Okay. Well, remember, if you like all the content we put on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe.